strike by TV and Film Writers Union in the U.S. is now in its third day. More than 11,000 members of the Writers Guild of America put their tools and cameras down on Tuesday to talk with Hollywood studios that have failed to reach a deal on a new 3-year agreement. That expired on Monday. Writers say they are not being paid fairly in the streaming area. They also want stricter measures to ensure that artificial intelligence doesn't take over their jobs. The fallout of the strike having an immediate impact on late-night talk shows, now forced to go off the air. But as Karina Mitchell reports, there's nothing funny about the impasse between the union and major Hollywood studios.
More than 11,000 members of the Writers Guild of America put down their pencils for the first time since 2008, instead picking up protest signs to tell their story.
For me, it's more just like fighting for the future of writing profession and making sure that people who want to be writers are protected and can make a career at it.
Many in the WGA believe Hollywood studios, including Netflix, Apple, Paramount, and NBC Universal, are converting their union jobs into a gig economy. The Guild's president says members only want their due, explaining streaming shows often have fewer episodes than a network series, resulting in fewer paychecks.
We're not being treated fairly in streaming. People are working on shows for, say, 10 weeks, then they may not work for another entire year.
Picketers are protesting on both coasts, including Los Angeles and here at Netflix headquarters in New York City. They're fighting for what they believe is a fair contract. Among the sticking points in negotiations, an increase in minimum pay for members, better residuals from streaming, and protocols over the use of artificial intelligence.
They're rejecting our proposals on artificial intelligence, we believe, because they intend to use it to replace us.
For others, like Khalees Hawkins, the issues are even more basic.
I have a 16-year-old daughter, so it was very important to me that she has health care.
As a result of the strike, millions of viewers are already having to watch reruns of late-night shows like Jimmy Kimmel Live and The Stephen Colbert Show. The Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers representing major studios and streaming services said in a statement it remains united in reaching a, quote, mutually beneficial deal that considers the health and longevity of the industry. But it indicated it was not prepared to budge on mandatory staffing and duration of employment demands when industry standards are shifting. Guild members are finding a wide variety of support as they strike. Everyone from kids who watch the shows they write to the stars they work alongside.
They make it funny, they make it creative, they make it dark, they make it scary, they make it suspenseful, and they're everything.
We want there to be a fair contract, and so I think it's really important that everybody show up and give support and drive everybody to the bargaining table.
Host Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers even pledged to pay their writers from their own pockets for a portion of the stoppage. Winship says he hopes there's a deal soon so writers and productions get back to the business of entertaining people. Karina Mitchell, CGTN, New York.
For more on the writers' strike, Imani Cheers joins us via Skype, Associate Professor, School of Media and Public Affairs at George Washington University. Good to see you, Imani.
Good to see you. Thank you.
This strike, part of it has been instigated by the fact that we've got streaming abilities to disseminate content, which they claim that they are being unfairly compensated for. Do you think that's fair?
Absolutely, Phil. And again, thank you so much for having me. I wish it was under better circumstances, talking about many of my friends and colleagues who are rightfully on strike for a living wage. Streaming is one of the things, and first of all, we all love it. We love to be able to binge watch a series and binge a show, and you get anywhere between 6, maybe 12 episodes. But the general, schedule for a network sitcom is 28, sometimes even 30 episodes. So when you look at that differential, I mean, the reality is writers aren't getting paid the same amount with the streaming program. And as they mentioned in the package, you could work on a show for 10 weeks and then not work again for a year until production starts up. So streaming has really put a dent in the way in which writers are able to do their work.
How is this different than previously when you would work on, say, a regular show, and I'm going back many years, but it was the same thing, right? You worked on a season. The season may be a half a year or maybe 2/3 of a year, and then you'd have a break. How is this different than that?
Because our streaming platform series are just shorter. And so again, half a year worth of work versus 2 months, I mean, that is drastic. And especially for aspects of healthcare and benefits, the majority of us, regardless of our profession, have 6, 8 months worth of savings to live on. And so many of these writers who are also actors are also, right, they do and play multiple roles in Hollywood. But the reality is writers are truly the backbone of the entertainment that we love. They're the ones that provide all of the amazing creativity that we get to see come to life on screen. And so they need to be fairly compensated for their part in this multi-trillion-dollar industry.
And I'm just curious, I don't know if you have the answer to this, but what percentage of, say, writers and actors and anchors and people in this sort of production world we live in, what percentage of them are part of the union, and what percentage of them are not part of the union? And I guess, how is it different if you were not in the union?
That's a really, really great question. And those numbers, depending, I mean, you currently have right now 11,000 guild members across, again, on both coasts throughout the country, who are on strike right now and actively picketing. And you look at the larger production, these particular writers are a small number who are in the Writer Guild of America. This is more of your entertainment. This isn't necessarily all, when you think of like your local news, those individuals wouldn't be in a writers union. They have their own types of employee unions, but not the Writer Guild of America, which is exactly what we're talking about right now. So it is a small percentage, but it is a small percentage of writers, but it's not a small percentage of the content that we consume.
A lot's changed in the last decade. You mentioned about streaming, and I'll just say this, is that if you are a writer, or you are a cameraman, or you're in this production world that we live in, there are a lot of options today, is there not? I mean, Apple has content, Hulu, Netflix. I mean, there are other ways. It used to be just a few major networks, but now we see a lot of players in the industry. Is that ultimately good, or is that ultimately bad for those of us in the business?
Yeah, and I apologize. The light in my space just timed out. But the reality is that yes, streaming services are going to provide a variety of different options. And yes, Apple, Hulu, Netflix, everything. Look at NBC, Universal Pictures, Disney Plus, all of it, Amazon. You are going to have a wide variety, and many writers do work in multiple spaces, streaming and on network. But what we're finding is that they're having to work and move, and a lot of them do freelance on all of these different opportunities that then ultimately are not coming back to the table and providing a living wage. And for inflation alone, since the first strike in 2007, now we're in, of course, 2023. But if we can go back over 15 years, their wages have drastically dropped, and as inflation has risen.
Now, so I don't want to disclose too much about wages, but I know some that make a lot and some don't. What are they asking for this union in terms of the increase? What's the average, and do you think they will ultimately get it? I assume it is about money and benefits.
Oh, of course. I mean, their campaign, when they look at a pattern of demands, they want an increase for minimum compensation, significantly to address the devaluation of writing across all areas of television, new media, and features. They want to address the abuses of mini rooms. They have a conversation on standardized compensation and residual terms for feature, whether they're theatrical or on streaming. They also want, increased contributions to their pension plans and their health funds. A lot of these writers, of course, have families. So they want to be able to have professional standards and protection for employment of all of their writers. And I think that's just really, really important. And so we're looking at, out of the individuals, over 98.4% of individuals in this union voted for these major moves. And unfortunately, they were not met. And that's why they're on strike.
Imani, always good to have you shed some light, so to speak, on this topic. And we will send a union lighting professional next time so that your light doesn't fall down.
Doesn't time out on me. No, it would be helpful.
Professor, good to see you. Thank you.